I sat watching the clock on the wall, the seconds ticking away, turning into minutes. Finally, I admitted to myself she wasn't going to come. I don't know why I kept on putting myself through it. Every time I organized something with my mom, she let me down. We were supposed to be having lunch together. It had been organized for a week. It wasn't as if she even came up with good excuses. Often she would just say she forgot. It hurt me that she didn't make an effort to spend time with me. I'll just give her 5 more minutes, I thought to myself. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom. Jasmine, something's come up. Can't make lunch today. That was it. No sorry. No love, Mom. In fact, I don't think my mom had ever said that she loved me. I sighed with disappointment. I should have known better than to make an arrangement to meet her. But I couldn't help myself. I just wanted to have a relationship with my mom. I signaled to the waiter to bring me my bill. He looked at me with pity. He obviously knew that I had been waiting for someone, but they hadn't shown. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss any shocking stories. I really miss my mom. Since my parents' divorce, I hardly ever saw her. She only lived a couple of streets away from us, but she might as well been on the other side of the country. When Mom moved out, she told me that I was going to live with my dad. I cried when she said that. But I want to live with you, I told her. You will be able to visit as often as you want, she told me. But it never worked out that way. Whenever I tried to contact her, she was always busy. She never answered my calls and sometimes didn't even reply to my text messages. I knew that she was busy with her new life, but it hurt that she didn't have any time for me. I sometimes went weeks without hearing from her. Once, I thought I would just go to my mom's house and surprise her. It had been weeks since I had seen her, and I felt sure she would be pleased to see me. I put a few things in a bag and went over to my mom's house. When I got there, I knocked on the door. I expected her to be so happy to see me. But when she opened the door, instead of smiling at me, she started screaming at me. What are you doing here? Go home. Go back to your father. Her words cut into my heart like a sharp knife. But Mom, I came to surprise you, I said, tears filling my eyes. You need to leave right now, she said angrily. Don't ever come here unannounced again. She slammed the door shut. Surely she wasn't going to leave me just standing there on the step. But that's exactly what she did. I waited for a few minutes, but eventually I realized she wasn't going to invite me in. When I got home, I ran straight up to my room and just lay on my bed, sobbing. I couldn't understand what I had done to make my mom want to ignore me. I understood that she had a new family now, and I was fine with that. I had 2 new stepsisters, and even though I hadn't really spent that much time with them, I liked them. I would have to find another way to get close to my mom. I decided that I would be friendly to my stepsisters at school, and then hopefully they would invite me to play with them at home. The next day at school, I made sure to bump into them. Oh, hi, Lisa. Hi, Carla, I said. Oh, hi, Jasmine. I've got something for you. I gave them a bag of candy each. Their eyes lit up. I knew that Mom didn't let them have candy very often, so this was a big treat for them. Thank you, Jasmine, they said, smiling. Hey, why don't we hang out this weekend? Okay. The following weekend, my dad was away for a work convention, so I was staying at my mom's house. I was so excited. It was months since I had spent a whole weekend with my mom. Friday morning, I packed my bag for the weekend. I was going to my mom's house straight after school. I wondered what Mom had got planned for us. Maybe she might take me into town shopping. Just the 2 of us. The school bell rang and I waited outside the school gates for Lisa and Carla, but they were nowhere to be seen. I was sure Mom had said they were going to walk home from school with me. I waited for another 20 minutes, but they were nowhere to be seen. I decided I would just go to Mom's. When I got there, Lisa and Carla were sitting in the room watching TV. Why did you leave without me? I asked them. Oh, sorry. We forgot, they said. I decided to let it go. I didn't want to have a fight with them on our first night together. I went into the kitchen to ask Mom what we were going to be doing the next day. Oh, I don't have time to do anything with you, Jasmine. You will have to amuse yourself, she said. Then she told me that it would probably be better if I spend the evening in my bedroom catching up with some schoolwork. You might as well eat your dinner in your room, too, she said. I'm busy at the moment. I have to plan Lisa's birthday party. I couldn't believe my ears. Lisa was having a birthday party? I had never even received a birthday card from my mom, never mind a present or a party. I spent the evening alone in my room. I could hear my sisters and my mom and stepdad downstairs. They were obviously having dinner together. I could hear them laughing and joking around. I wanted to cry, but I was determined not to let my weekend be ruined. The following day, we were outside in the garden. Lisa, Carla, let's play hide and seek, I said. I'll count first. I counted to 100 and went to look for them. It didn't take me long to find them. They hid in the most obvious places. Now it's your turn to count, Carla, I told her. Carla started counting and I ran and hid in a bush at the end of the garden. I sat there, but Carla didn't find me. I must have been in that bush for at least an hour. Eventually, I decided to give myself up. But when I came out of my hiding place, Lisa and Carla were nowhere to be seen. I went in the house. They were sitting together watching a movie and eating popcorn. I couldn't believe they ditched me and came inside. Hey, why did you leave me out there? I asked. Oh, yeah, we couldn't be bothered to play anymore, Lisa said. But we're going to do some baking this afternoon, said Carla. Do you want to join us? I was still annoyed with them, but I wanted to bake too, so I agreed to join them. Mom said that we were each to make our own cupcakes, and she would judge the winner. I knew there was no way those girls could beat me. I was the queen of cupcakes. We all chose our ingredients and prepared our cakes. We put them in the oven and set the timer. The smell coming from the kitchen was amazing. I couldn't wait for Mom to try one of my cupcakes. When they were ready, Mom set them out on a plate. She tried Lisa's first. Oh, Lisa, darling, that is delicious. So sweet and moist, she said. Next was Carla's. Carla, the chocolate filling in your cupcake is perfect. Well done. Now it was my turn. I smiled as my mom took a bite of my cake. Ugh, yuck, Mom said as she spat the cake out. That tastes disgusting. When Mom left the kitchen, I turned to my two stepsisters. What did you do to my cakes? I said angrily. You didn't think we were gonna let you win, did you? Asked Lisa. We swapped the sugar for the salt, laughed Carla. Why would you do that? 'Cause you're always sucking up to our mom. She's my mom too. I stormed out of the house. I had had enough. The girls were so mean to me and I was sick to death of my mom ignoring me and taking the girls' sides over everything. I decided I was going to confront my mom. I got my chance the next day. The girls had gone to their friend's house and it was just Mom and me at home. Mom, why don't you ever want to spend time with me? What have I done wrong? I asked her. Don't be silly, Jasmine, she said. Now, I have lots to do, so just go to your room. See? You're doing it now, I shouted. Why don't you want me near you? Okay, fine, Mom shouted. If you want to know the reason, then I'll tell you. You're not my real daughter. I couldn't believe what she was saying. Not her real daughter? Mom went on to tell me that my dad had cheated on her with another woman called Stacy. She said that I was Stacy's baby, but she had left without a word, leaving my dad and my mom to bring me up. It's no wonder that she hated me. I was a constant reminder that my dad had cheated on her. But you were the only mom I've ever known, I said. I want to spend time with you. Mom agreed to let me still come and visit her. It was slow going at first, but eventually things started going well between me and my mom. Even my stepsisters were nicer to me. I began to spend every weekend at my mom's house and even a couple of evenings in the week. At first, my dad was fine with me being at my mom's house so much, but one day he got really angry with me. Jasmine, enough is enough. You are spending too much time at your mom's house. I forbid you to go there. You can't stop me, I screamed at him. She's my mom. I can stop you, and I will, Dad screamed back. I was so confused. Why was Dad acting like that? Why are you being like this, Dad? I asked. Then Dad told me the most shocking thing. He said that it was Mom that had cheated on him first. The only reason he had cheated with Stacy was to get his revenge on my mom. I didn't know what to believe. Was my mom telling the truth, or was my dad? I knew there was only one way to find out for sure. I would have to take a DNA test. At least then I would know which one of my parents was my blood relative. The envelope came and I opened it. My hands were shaking with nerves. I read the results of the test. No blood relationship to either parent. What on earth is happening? How can I not be related to either my mom or my dad? I thought. I knew the only person that could know the truth was Stacy. I had to find her and ask her what had really happened. I found her number in Dad's phone and called her. I asked her to meet me at the park. When I got there, I saw her sitting on a bench. I got straight to the point. I want to know who my real parents are, I told her. I'm sorry, Jasmine, I have no idea, Stacy said. I'm not your biological mom. My jaw dropped. Okay, so first, Mom wasn't my real mom. Then Dad wasn't my real dad. And now the person who was supposed to be my biological mom wasn't even my biological mom. If you think that sounds confusing, imagine how I felt. Stacy told me how she had found me as a baby in an alleyway. I had been left in a cardboard box. She said that there was no note saying who I was or who my parents were. I didn't even have enough money to look after myself, never mind a baby. She told me that she did have an affair with my dad. It was at the same time as she was seeing my dad that she found me in the alleyway. She realized that the best thing to do was to leave me with my dad. He had enough money to look after me and would give me a good life. So after all that, I was still none the wiser. I had no idea who I was or where I had come from. I knew that I was going to have to tell my mom and dad what I had found out. I told Dad first, and then went to see my mom. They were both a bit surprised, but they agreed that they still wanted me in their lives. So that is what we decided to do. I now spend half my time with my mom, and the rest of the time with my dad. Turns out that Dad had been telling the truth. My mom had cheated on him first, and then he cheated with Stacy. I guess they're both as bad as each other. Maybe one day I will find out who my real parents are, but for now, I'm just happy spending time with the ones that I've got. Please give that back, Nina screamed. Not until you do what I asked, I replied. I don't want to. I opened her pencil case and broke everything that was inside. I snapped every single pen and pencil in two. My friends cheered and laughed while Nina looked like she wanted to cry. When I was done, I pushed it all off my desk and onto the floor. Nina rushed to pick up her broken things, and I tapped her on the forehead with my shoe. Before I continue my story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell too, or you'll miss out on the cool stories. Anyway, like I was saying, I was pretty much a terrible person. I only picked on the kids who looked different from me. If they were poor, that made it worse. I thought that poor people were so gross, I considered myself to be better than everyone else, especially the foreign kids. Me, on the other hand, I was blonde, tall, skinny, and absolutely gorgeous. I could get any boy I wanted. People like Nina had to try a little harder because she wasn't perfect like me. To make it better, I was rich. My dad owned 4 cars and my mom didn't need to work because he earned so much money. I got everything I asked for, and I looked down on anyone whose parents couldn't spoil them. How could you not have lots of money? Like, ew. I had no idea that the events which would follow that day would change my life forever. I went home after school, screamed at the butler for not having my favorite drink ready as I walked through the door, and stormed to my room to watch TV. Midway through my favorite sitcom, I heard a knock on my door. What? I shouted. Open the door. It was my mom. I opened the door and she looked at me like she was disappointed. What's wrong? You didn't get to spend Dad's money today or something? I asked. She rolled her eyes. Your principal called about your behavior. Apparently some kid named Nina told her mom you were being horrible to her? That foreign kid? Well, she deserved it. I replied, I've already spoken to you about this type of attitude. I don't know who you inherited this from. It's like you're the spawn of Satan or something. Anyway, I was just letting you know that I'll be coming to school with you tomorrow, she said. I was angry. The next day, I was angrier. I sat in the principal's office and was distracted by his hideous face. He looked like Mr. Potato Head, except more like a potato and less like a head. He wore glasses, which didn't really match his face, and he had a hideous mustache, which moved up and down while he spoke. Is that clear, young lady? He said. What? I asked. Didn't you hear anything I said? No, I was distracted by your ugly face. Has anyone ever told you you look like Mr. Lisa! My mom screamed. She was as red as a tomato and looked like she was about to explode. She got up, held my collar, and dragged me out of the door. My friends saw and started laughing at me. Mom, stop, you're embarrassing me, I said. I'm about to do more than that. You'll see. She screamed. Everyone, listen to me. Remember Lisa's face, because you all won't be seeing it for a very long time. I'm sorry to everyone she's hurt. I promise I didn't raise her like this. She shouted to everyone around who could hear. I wanted to die. She drove us home in silence. Then, when we got home, she said, Pack your bags. What? You're kicking me out? That's illegal. I'm only 15, I replied. I'm not kicking you out. We're going on a little trip tomorrow, she said, then went to the other room and shut the door. I guess she thinks I need to calm down, so we're going on a mini vacation. It's great being rich, I thought. I packed all my favorite clothes and gadgets. I made sure I packed at least 2 power banks and had my phone and backup phone just in case. The next day, my dad wasn't around because he was on a business trip, so I didn't get to say goodbye. My mom asked his driver to take us to the airport, and we were off. She still seemed a bit upset about yesterday, so I tried to make conversation to cheer her up. So, where are we going? Vegas? I asked. No, she said. To the beach in Cali? No, she said again. It was clear that she didn't want to talk to me, so I told myself I'd just wait for the surprise. When we got to the airport, we checked in and she gave me a boarding pass. I read it and screamed. We are going to India? Why? I said. Shut up. We're late. Let's go to the correct gate. Hurry. She replied. She started running and I followed. We went to our departure gate, gave our boarding passes, and got onto the plane. I'll see you on the other side, my mom said. Then I realized she was going to be flying first class, but she bought me an economy ticket. What the hell? I can't fly with the poor people, I exclaimed. She chuckled and walked away. I walked to my seat, which was between a huge sweaty man and a 5-year-old. It was awkward, but at least I had all my cool things. It was going to be a long flight. And it really was. That gross man fell asleep and started drooling, and the kid wanted to play with my iPad while my mom was probably enjoying cocktails and a beautiful view over in first class. I hated her. I fell asleep to forget my sadness, and when I woke up, everyone was standing. We had landed. I got up and walked to find my mom, who was nowhere to be found. I got off the plane and went through customs by myself. I figured I'd find her when we went to claim our luggage, but she wasn't there either. I found my bags and walked outside. I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find my mom. I didn't know what to do, so I took out my cell phone and tried to call her, then remembered I was in another country. When I raised my head and looked around again, I saw an Indian couple holding up a sign. It said, "Welcome, Lisa?" That can't be for me, I thought. Then the man looked at me and shouted, "Lisa, Lisa, over here, come." "Yes, that's the girl from the picture," the woman said. I looked around again for my mom, but she was nowhere to be seen. "Come, come," the woman said. I walked over to them because I had no choice. Maybe they were workers at the fancy hotel we were going to stay at. The man took my luggage and said, "It's about a 2-minute walk to our car." I followed, still very confused. When we got to the ugly car, he put my suitcase in the trunk and then sat in the driver's seat. His wife sat next to me in the back. So I haven't introduced myself. My name is Mrs. Cooper, but you can call me Anita, and this is my husband, Harish. We are so happy that you will be marrying our son, Sanjay, she said. "Oh, what?" I asked. "Your mother didn't tell you? She handed you over to our family so that you could marry our son. He's 2 years older than you are, but we will wait until you are 18 until we send you to live alone with him. For now, all of you will live with us, and I will teach you how to be a proper wife. I don't think you learned much about that in America," she said. "Is this some kind of joke? Where is my mom? I'm going to the police," I shouted. "Well, I'm actually a cop." Harish laughed. "It seems like your mother didn't explain that you sort of belong to us now, but don't worry, we are nice people. Here are the documents if you don't believe me," she said while handing me a folder. I opened the folder and recognized my mom's signature on several papers, which I didn't bother to read. "Oh, I nearly forgot she left you this letter," she said. "You saw my mom? Where did she go?" I asked, wanting to cry. "I don't know. Here," she said, handing me the envelope. I opened it and felt a bit sick. It was hard for me to read while Harish drove along the bumpy road. It read, "Dear Lisa, you've been a horrible person, and I'm honestly sick and tired of having to put up with your nonsense. Therefore, I'm wiping my hands of any obligation to take care of you. I found an advertisement online posted by this family who was searching for a suitable wife for their son. I think it's about time you met new people and had new experiences so you could stop being so shallow, insensitive, and overall awful. Mrs. Cooper will assign you your roles in the house, and you will learn to be a proper wife to Sanjay. Make sure you listen well and do all they say. Love, Mom." I was blinded by my own tears. I couldn't believe she would do something like this to me. After driving for about an hour and a half, we entered a small village. All of the houses were tiny, but the one they pulled up in front of was a bit bigger than the others. It was 2 stories high, but it was still much smaller than my mansion back home. "We're here," Anita smiled. I got out of the car and began walking towards the door. Then I thought, there's no way, absolutely no way. I'm going to live there with these people. I will find a way to escape, and I will make sure that when I get back home, my mom goes to jail forever, because there's no way this is legal. I turned around and began to run. I didn't know where I was running to, but I just ran and ran and ran. Harish ran after me, but he couldn't keep up. Apparently I was running in circles because I ended up exactly where I started. Anita grabbed my arm and shoved me inside their house. "Don't you ever do that again," she screamed. We will have to ground you. You will sleep here. I will lock the door and I won't let you out until you promise to behave yourself. I'm taking all your gadgets away too. Don't try to contact anyone," she said while shoving me in a dusty room. There were no tiles on the floor, and there was only a small bed with ugly sheets in the room. There was no bathroom attached like my room back home, but there was a tiny squatter in the corner. Ew, I thought when I sat on the bed and cried and cried. Later, Anita opened the door and put a tray of food on the floor. Then she slammed the door and locked it from the outside. I kept quiet for a few days because I had no idea what these people were capable of doing to me. Then one day, the door opened and Anita and Harish walked in. "We'd like you to meet your future husband, Sanjay," Anita said. "He's our lovely son, and starting tomorrow, you will learn how to cater his every need," Harish said. Sanjay walked in. Although they told me he was 2 years older than I was, he looked a lot smaller. He looked at me and rolled his eyes. "That's the best you could do?" he said to his parents. "I know she's not that pretty, but she will do. We can't send her back now anyway. You'll learn to love her," his mom replied. I felt so insulted. I was one of the prettiest girls I knew. They walked out and I went to sleep. The next morning, Anita woke me up at 5. "Get up, girl. You will learn how to make Sanjay's favorite breakfast today," she said. I got up and went to their kitchen for the first time. It was a small room, and they had one old fridge and a stove which looked like it would break down any moment. "Watch everything I'm doing, because tomorrow you'll have to do it all on your own," she said. It was so demeaning. I never even had to cook for myself when I was back home, and now I was being forced to learn how to cook for someone I never agreed to marry? Later, Anita made me sweep and mop the house. Then I had to dust all the books on their small bookshelf. The worst part was doing Sanjay's laundry because they didn't have a washing machine. I had to do it all by hand, and I had no idea what I was doing. "You're doing it wrong!" Anita shouted, and she tapped my hand. It hurt. Then I had to learn how to make Sanjay's favorite lunch and dinner. By the end of the day, I was exhausted. I went straight to my room to sleep. "No, it's not time for relaxing. You have to get to know your husband before the wedding, which is next week, by the way. I've bought your outfit and everything. Hurry up and do as you're told," Mr. Kapoor said whilst pulling me off my bed and pushing me into the living room where Sanjay was sitting. I refused to talk to him, and the next morning, Anita woke me up at 5 again to cook breakfast. I tried to remember what she taught me, but I got it all wrong. When I served Sanjay, he took one bite and threw the whole plate on the floor. "Clean up this garbage, because that's exactly what it tastes like," he said. I was so devastated, and I wanted to cry. I missed my beautiful life. Right now, I was nothing but a servant to a stupid boy I didn't want to marry. I realized I had been too hard on people for no reason. I wished I could go back to school. I'd say sorry to Nina for treating her so horribly. The day of the wedding came, and I was forced to wear a hideous outfit I hated. I spent the entire day crying. We had a typical Indian wedding, and they did things to me which I didn't quite understand. "Now you have to kiss him. You're officially married," Anita shouted. At that moment, I blacked out. I think I must have fainted. When I woke up, I was staring into my mother's eyes. I was on a hospital bed. "Ah, you're up. I hope I taught you a good lesson, you little monster. It was all a prank. I didn't marry you off, but if you continue to behave like a terrible person at school, I'm going to do it for real. Get up, let's go home," she said. Never before had I been so thankful to be pranked.
"We called your mom. She said she forgot, but she's on her way. Mrs. Turpin, the ballet teacher, informed me. She's not my mom," a 10-year-old me mumbled under my breath as Mrs. Turpin walked away. "She's my stepmom." Hi, my name is Annabelle. Like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so that you can see more amazing content on our channel. Don't forget to tell a friend too. My mom and dad went through an awful divorce when I was 8 years old. Living arrangements were in favor of my dad while I visited my mother every other weekend. My dad and I had a great relationship until he came home one day when I was 10 years old and said that he was married. "You must be the little angel Andrew told me so much about," Gloria said, batting her eyelashes at my dad. "I think we'll be great friends." Gloria, who insisted that I call her Mom, reminded me of a book I read, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. She was extremely mean when we were alone, but when my father was around, she was extremely nice. Dad, I don't think Gloria likes me very much. I don't like how she treats me, I told my dad one afternoon while we were watching television. Without moving his gaze from the television, my dad replied, "Give Gloria time. She has never been with a guy who lives with his child before. This is new territory for her." It really doesn't take much to treat someone with common courtesies and basic human decency, Dad. When I told my mother, she was furious. Not only with how Gloria was treating me, but the fact that my dad did nothing about it. She tried to discuss the situation with my dad, but he told her that she was just jealous because he had moved on and remarried. One weekend before my mom dropped me back at my dad's house, she gave me a small gift. It's not my birthday. I shook the box. Well, if you open it, you'll find out what it is. My mother smiled at me. I ripped off the wrapper excitedly and held up a phone. Thanks, Mom. I wrapped my arms around her neck. No problem, baby. Now you can call me anytime and we can talk. About 2 weeks later, Gloria walked into my bedroom and saw me talking on the phone. She asked me if I stole the phone. I told her that my mother bought it for me. She snatched the phone from my hand and took it to my father. Gloria told my father that I was too young to have a phone, and of course, my father agreed with her. He said that my mother could call me on the house phone. The house phone, however, was in the living room, and I couldn't tell my mother how things really were if I used that phone. When my mother heard what my father did, she bought me another phone and told me to hide it. That weekend of my 10th birthday, I was supposed to spend it with my mom. We had it all planned out, breakfast at Tiffany's Cafe, a spa day, then to the mall for shopping, and once we got home, she was willing to watch a Pokemon marathon with me. It was going to be the best birthday ever. A few days before my birthday, my mom had an emergency surgery to remove her appendix. Gloria told my father that she would host a birthday party for me since he would be at a business trip. I was taken aback by Gloria's gesture. The day before the party, Gloria, Dad, and I shopped for everything for the party. Games, balloons, refreshments. Gloria even bought me a new outfit for the party. That night, we stayed up and decorated. Things seemed to be looking up. When it was 12 a.m., my dad kissed me and told me happy birthday, and he would see me when he got back in a few days. And he left for the airport. I went to bed that night totally excited. The day of my birthday, Gloria and I added the extra touches to the setup. I dressed in my outfit and waited for my friends. Then, out of nowhere, Gloria grabbed my arm and dragged me to the basement. Before throwing me in, she looked at me menacingly and said, "If you make any noise in this basement, I will make sure that social services take you away and you will never see your parents again." That afternoon, while my friends were having fun upstairs, I sat at the top step of the basement, crying my eyes out. When I pressed my ear against the door, I heard Gloria tell a parent that my mother was in the hospital and that my father took me to see her, but hopefully I will be back soon to join in on the fun. After everyone was sent home, Gloria opened the basement door with an evil smile on her face and walked away. I didn't see Gloria again for the rest of the afternoon. When I told my father about what happened when he came back, he was angry. He said that even though I did not like Gloria, it doesn't mean that I should make up stories about her. "You never believe anything I have to say anyway," I screamed and walked away. At age 12, my mother passed away. A car ran the red light and collided with hers. She was hospitalized for 2 weeks. She appeared to be getting better and the doctors were hopeful. So when my dad got a call saying that she had succumbed to her injuries, my entire world crashed. I felt lost and alone. My mother and I often imagined life when I turned 18 and I could finally go live with her. The hope of ever having a normal life died with my mother. I didn't know how I was going to make it to 18 without the support and love of my mother. My life continuously went downhill from there. "Hey, how did you spend your 13th birthday yesterday?" Jordan asked. Jordan and I have been friends for the past 5 years. He was the only person besides my mom that had my phone number. After my mom passed away, he told me that he would pay the bill since he worked in his father's general store on the weekends. I was reluctant at first, but the phone held voice notes and messages from my mother that would have been lost if my phone was cut. "Oh, it was cool," I lied. "So, what are you waiting for?" "My stepmom, but she is always late." I rolled my eyes. "I can stay with you if you want." He smiled. "Thanks. I would love the company." Little did I know that accepting Jordan's offer was going to raise hell when I got home. That night, my father called a family meeting. He announced that from now on, I would be homeschooled. Gloria convinced my father that homeschooling meant individual attention, and I wouldn't have any distractions, such as the little boy she caught me holding hands with when she picked me up. "What? I wasn't holding anyone's hand," I said angrily. "But there was a boy waiting with you when Gloria picked you up?" My dad asked with a raised eyebrow. "Yes, because Gloria—" My dad cut me off. "Good, so it's settled. You will be homeschooled. Gloria already picked out a great homeschooling program." "Of course she did," I muttered under my breath. As soon as I went to my bedroom, I locked the door and messaged Jordan. I told him what happened, but Jordan had a plan. He said he would sneak work to me. I told him that I wasn't even allowed outside unless it was to throw out the trash. We agreed that every afternoon he would pass in front of my house and drop my package of work, which he would place in a bag next to the trash. When I completed the work, I would drop it back by the trash before he passed, and he would get a teacher to correct it for me. I was eternally grateful for Jordan, the one ray of light in my life. Homeschooling with Gloria was horrendous. Now that I was home all the time, Gloria tried to control my entire life. What I ate, watched on TV, even the number of hours that I slept. My father didn't seem to notice, or he didn't care. He got a promotion at work and spent more time at the office than at home. Thanks to Jordan and some teachers at the school, I was not only able to apply to colleges, but I got accepted into one, Northgate University. My father gave my stepmom the check for my tuition, but according to her, she forgot to mail it in. I was devastated. Because of her, I didn't get to go to Northgate. My dad told me that I could reapply the next year. Luckily, I was able to beg my way into a community college. I asked my dad to give me the check so that I could mail it in myself. I thought being 18 and going to college would have made Gloria back off, but it didn't. I begged my dad to pay my rent for me until I got a job, but he refused. He said he shouldn't have to pay for rent when I could live at home for free. So, how did it go? Jordan asked over the phone. No dice? Ugh, I just want to get out of here, but I can't do that unless I get a job. I can't get a job because places want job experience. It's the most frustrating thing ever. Let me ask my dad if he would be willing to take on another employee. I mean, you're there almost every day. We might as well put you to good use. I laughed. Jordan and I chatted for a few minutes before we hung up. I was over the moon when Jordan called me the next day and told me that his father was willing to hire me. I needed to save enough money to have at least 6 months of rent before I left, because the last thing I wanted to do was return to my father's house. When my stepmom found out where I was working, she made calls to the store and tried to get me fired. Thankfully, Mr. Dalton did not believe her. He warned her that the next time she called his store trying to defame any of his workers, that he would slap her with a desist letter from a lawyer. When I mentioned to Jordan that I almost made quota, he suggested that we go looking at apartments to keep me motivated. I kept my money in a jewelry box hidden on a shelf at the back of my closet. It's an heirloom from my mother. One afternoon when I got home, the jewelry box was broken on my bed and the money was missing. I confronted my stepmom and she just laughed. You will never amount to anything, just like your mother. That night, I decided that enough was enough. I preferred to live on the streets than live in the same house as Gloria another day. I packed what I could carry and left. That night, I stayed in an abandoned house. The next morning when I arrived at work, Jordan noticed a change in my appearance and attitude. I told him what happened the night before. I tried hard not to cry, but I had been holding everything in for so long that I cried hysterically. Jordan called his father on the phone and had a short conversation. He took my hand and carried me to the back of the store. He led me up a short flight of stairs and opened the door. It was the cutest little apartment. I was fixing up the space for myself, but you need it more than I do. And don't worry about working today. I'll cover your shift. Get some rest. I hugged him and thanked him. When he left, I took a bath and went to bed. The next day, I was shocked when my father showed up at the store. How could you be so ungrateful and steal from Gloria after everything she's done for you? What are you talking about? Gloria said that you stole money from her. Gloria stole money from me. If you don't return the money, Gloria is threatening to press charges. Just then, Mr. Dalton confronted my father. Why are you believing a woman who obviously doesn't love your daughter? It's a shame that Annabelle has to deal with a man as selfish as you. Gloria has done nothing but make her life miserable. And maybe if you took your head out of your butt, you would see how manipulative she is. Mr. Dalton walked to the door and opened it. Your time here is up. You need to leave. If any charges are brought against Annabelle, I will tell the police that you came to my store and threatened me because I gave your daughter a job. And, he pointed to the camera, I have proof. The next few months were amazing. Jordan and I eventually started dating. School was great, and I felt as though I was getting the life that I finally deserved. But I should have known that it was too good to be true, the way that my life is set up. One night, while having dinner with Jordan and his family, Mr. Dalton got a call that the store was on fire. The fire chief said it was arson. We all had an idea about who did it, but without proof, we couldn't do anything. Mr. and Mrs. Dalton told me that I could stay in the guest room. Mr. Dalton was unable to claim insurance because the fire was caused by arson. He tried to go to multiple banks to get a loan to rebuild, but to no avail. Just when we had given up, we got a knock on the door. It was my mother's lawyer. Annabelle, I've been searching for you for months. I visited your father a year ago, and his wife said she didn't know where you were. I have some good news for you. You are the sole beneficiary of your mother's estate. She left you a house, an apartment complex, and $3 million from her life insurance. My mouth dropped. I gave Mr. Dalton all the money he needed to rebuild his store. Not only did I graduate, but Jordan and I are engaged. I am currently doing my degree to become a social worker so that I can help as many children as I can live a normal life. No child should ever feel unloved or uncared for. I may be just one person, but I am determined to make a difference.
I could hear the raised voices as I walked down my street. Surely, that couldn't be coming from my house. My mom and dad never argued. But as I got closer, I realized that it was my mom and dad. I wondered what could have happened to make them fight like that. I opened the front door, and the shouting hit me like a ton of bricks. You betrayed me! No, it was you who betrayed me! I hate you! I never want to see you again! That was my mom. Why would she say something like that to my dad? I wondered what he could have done. Don't worry, I'm out of here, shouted Dad. Do you really think I want to spend another minute of my time with someone like you? This couldn't be happening. What's going on? I asked. Mom and Dad looked around in surprise. They hadn't realized I had been standing there, listening to everything they said. Dad barged past me and out the front door, slamming it behind him as he went. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more crazy stories. I couldn't understand why there had been fighting. I always thought they were so in love, the perfect couple, but I guess they hadn't been as happy as I thought, because the following day my dad packed up all those things and left our house for good. He got an apartment on the other side of town. He told me that he wanted me to go and live with him there, but Mom also wanted me to live with her. I tried to ask them both what had happened to make them fight, but they were both really vague. I don't know if they were trying to protect me or if they thought I wouldn't understand. Mom just said things hadn't been going well for a while, and my dad said they had drifted apart. It didn't seem like a good enough reason to get divorced, but I suppose they knew what they were doing. They told me that by the end of the week, I would have to decide which one of them I was going to live with. It wasn't an easy decision. My dad just kept on showering me with presents. In the following couple of days, he literally bought me everything I'd asked for in the last few months. I knew he was trying to buy me, but it was hard to resist. My mom, on the other hand, just tried to guilt trip me into staying with her. You wouldn't leave me, darling, would you? Not after everything I have done for you, she said. Remember, I carried you in my tummy for 9 months. I fed you, bathed you, read you stories, whilst all your father did was go to work. It was too difficult. How on earth could I choose between one parent or another? I decided the only thing for it was to flip a coin. So that's what I did. Heads up, I stay with my mom. Tails, I go live with my dad. I flipped the coin in the air. I watched as it turned over and over as it tumbled back down. I caught it on the back of my hand. It was heads. So I stayed at home with my mom. Dad was really upset when I told him my decision. I promise I will come and see you as often as I can, I told him. I really missed my dad. We used to spend every evening together, watching TV or out in the garden if the weather was nice. Now I just sat in my room, alone in front of my computer. Mom was always busy doing something. She said that she didn't have time to laze around all night in front of the television. I couldn't wait for the weekend so that I could go and see my dad. When the school bell rang to say it was the end of the day, I ran out of the school gates. I could see my dad's car parked at the end of the road. I jumped in and gave Dad a big hug. I've missed you so much, I said. And I've missed you too, Bella, said Dad. I've got a really special weekend planned for us. That night we ordered pizza and sat together watching TV. It was a perfect way to spend a Friday night. The next day, Dad took me into town to go shopping. Then we went to see a movie. The weekend went by so quickly. Before I knew it, it was time for Dad to drop me back to my mom's house. I didn't want to go, but I knew I had no choice. The week seemed to drag by, but eventually it was Thursday night. The next day, I would be going to see my dad again. I was sitting in my room wondering what my dad would have planned for us to do that weekend when I heard a loud knock at the door. I wondered who could be coming to our house at that time of night. I went downstairs and was surprised to see 2 policemen standing in our hallway. "What's happened, Mom?" I asked. Mom looked at me. "Apparently your dad has been involved in some sort of incident," she said. "What do you mean?" "Someone has attempted to murder him." The blood drained from my face. "Is he going to be okay?" "I'm sorry," said the policeman. "We don't have any more details at the moment. We will take you to the hospital now so that you can see your dad." I got in the police car and we drove to the hospital. When I got there, Dad was laid in bed. He was covered in bandages. "Dad, are you okay?" I cried as I ran to his bedside. "He has been sedated," said his doctor. "We need him to rest and recover from his injuries." "What happened to him?" The doctor told me that someone had stabbed my dad. He had been injured quite badly, but they felt sure he would make it. Luckily, his wounds weren't too deep. I couldn't understand who would want to do this to my dad. He was such a kind man. He didn't have any enemies. I called Mom and told her that Dad was going to be fine. "I'm going to go over to his apartment before I come home," I said. "I just want to make sure everything is okay there." "Okay, Bella, be careful," Mom said. When I got to Dad's apartment, everything looked normal. There was no sign of a break-in or anything. I went inside. The apartment looked exactly the same as when I'd left it last week. Nothing out of place. It just didn't make sense to me. I was about to leave when I suddenly spotted something on the floor. It was a gemstone, a round red ruby. I wondered where it could have come from. I picked it up and put it in my pocket. I decided I would ask Dad about it when he woke up. I locked the door and went back home to my mom's. I thought that she would show a little concern about Dad, but it seemed like she didn't care at all. When I went into the kitchen, she didn't ask a thing. She just carried on stirring the pot on the stove. "Dinner will be ready soon, Bella," she said. "Go get a shower and come straight down." I did as Mom told me. I couldn't believe she was being so heartless. Even though they were getting a divorce now, she must have loved him at one point. After my shower, I went and sat at the dining room table. Mom came in with a steaming bowl in her hands. That's when I saw it. The necklace Mom was wearing was missing a stone. There was a big hole where once there had been a bright red ruby. I knew I had to confront her. I pulled the ruby out of my pocket. "Mom, is this yours?" I asked her. "Oh, thank you, darling," she said. "I've been looking for that everywhere. Where did you find it?" "In Dad's apartment." Mom looked at me and I realized I knew what she had done. She was the one who tried to murder my dad. "Why did you want to hurt Dad?" I asked her. "Your dad is a spy for the British government," she said. "He's been trying to get secrets out of me because I work for the United States government. I had to silence him. That's why I did it." "You're not going to tell anyone, are you? You wouldn't put your own mother in prison, would you?" This is crazy, I thought. "I'm going to see Dad," I shouted. "I need to hear what he has to say." I ran out of the house and went straight to the hospital. Dad was sitting up in bed. He looked really happy to see me. "I know you're a spy," I shouted at him. He looked shocked. "Who told you that?" he asked. "Mom told me. I know all about you trying to get secrets out of her." "Well, did she also tell you that she is a Russian spy?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did my dad think I was stupid? "Mom's not from Russia. She's from Texas," I said. "Oh, that's just the fake identity she made for herself. She has perfected the Texas accent to fool everyone." "But what about my grandparents?" I asked him. "They live in Texas. We have stayed there so many times." Dad told me that my mom had hired these people to pretend to be my grandparents, to fool us into believing that she was really from Texas. "Wait, so are you both spies then?" I asked Dad. "No, only your mom." I didn't know who to believe. It was crazy. I thought I had 2 normal parents, and now they were both saying that the other was a spy. I didn't know which one I could trust, but seeing as my dad was the one who was in the hospital, I guess that I had to believe him. I went back to Mom's and packed up all my things. "I'm going to live with Dad," I told her. "You won't tell anyone, right?" she said. "You won't get me sent to prison, will you?" I shook my head. I didn't like what she had done, but she was still my mom. "I won't tell anyone as long as you leave me and Dad alone now." Mom agreed, and I went to live with my dad. It was a couple of weeks later when I heard a car pull up outside my dad's apartment. I looked out of the window. It was a police car and 2 policemen were walking towards our door. My heart dropped. I wondered what they were coming for. Before they had a chance to knock, I opened the door. "Hello, Bella," one of the policemen said. "Can we come in?" I took them into the lounge and we sat on the sofa. That's when they told me the most shocking thing. "Someone has attempted to murder your mom," they said. First my dad, now my mom, I thought. "Is she okay?" I asked. "Yes, she's fine, but we just wanted to ask if you had any idea who might do this to her." I told the policeman that I didn't know anything. As soon as they drove off, I put on my coat and set off to my mom's house. I was determined I would find out who had done this to her. I thought that as she was a spy, maybe she got into trouble with some bad people. But when I got to my mom's house, I saw something I wasn't expecting. On the floor was a handkerchief. I picked it up. I would recognize it anywhere. It had my dad's initials embroidered in one corner. I felt more confused than ever. I wondered if my mom had been telling the truth all along. Had it actually been my dad that was the spy? I decided that the only way to find out the truth was to get them both together and force them to tell me. That's when I came up with my plan. It all took place later that night. I snuck up on my dad while he was in the living room and hit him over the head. I blindfolded my mom while she was sleeping and dragged them both down to the basement and tied them both to a chair. Oh, and if you're wondering how I managed to kidnap 2 spies, I'm a master in karate. I've studied it for more than 10 years. I guess that is one good thing my parents did for me. It took a while for my dad to come around from the bash on his head, but eventually he opened his eyes. I took off my mom's blindfold. They both looked in surprise at each other. "You tell me the truth right now," I screamed at them. "I want to know which one of you is really a spy." My parents looked at each other and nodded. "We are both spies," they said. My jaw dropped. Seriously? So now I'm in a dilemma. Do I report my mom for attempting to kill my dad? Or do I report my dad for doing the same thing to her? It's the hardest decision of my life. I have to choose between my mom and my dad. Please help me decide. Leave your answers in the comments below.